Thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate having the time to speak with all of you. My name is Kan Min Yen, but everyone just calls me Min, as in the minimum function. That's how everyone remembers my name. I've actually been in NUS for 15 years. I came in 2002 in computer science. So I've been an assistant professor, now associate, and I'm helping to run ALSET, which is our Institute for the Application of Learning, Sciences, and Educational Technology. So it really has two different parts. Well, three different parts. The A is about the application. So we're definitely an institute dedicated to the application rather than just the theory, the idea that we would actually implement what we do in classrooms. And then there's two other parts. The LS stands for Learning Sciences, so putting together the pedagogical aspects. And because I'm in computer science, there's also a part that's dedicated to educational technologies. So that's the ET part. So we're trying to interleave, the pedagogical theory and put it into practice as an application. Okay, so that's what we have in this institute. So I wanted to start you off by just giving you something to think about. Why are we coming to CenMED to present this? Because we would like to ask for your help in creating ALSET as a joint venture between medicine, nursing, and the rest of the university. One is in form of the data that we have within NUS, so we'll talk more about that. The funding that we have within ALSET, the support that we make available for dealing with IRB and other applications, contacts that we have externally outside of NUS, and finally, in terms of being able to publish and communicate your research. So I know all of you here are interested in pedagogy and making a wider impact. Let's work together to help you do that. Okay, that's our primary message. So for faculty as well as staff, can we find a way to work together? And we're going to save most of the time, actually. We're only going to talk for 30 minutes between myself and Josh, who is our expert, to go through this. Okay, and then after that, we hope we can interact with you over the next hour or so, interactively to answer your questions. So really, when we think about education right now, it's really, one broadcasting to many, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? So if we think of a lecture hall, we can try to put more hands-on practice, use more learning theory to engage people, and learning looks more like this, right? We have pharmacy students here trying to engage in an active classroom style where they're actively working together on an exercise. Maybe they've enjoyed some type of blended learning where they've watched videos or lectures beforehand and they come together to reify that knowledge in some type of exercise. Okay. What we need, however, is to do this at a scale, and not just to do it in the classroom, but to also become a thought leader. We hear all the time about how Singapore is a living laboratory, right? How Singapore is a test bed for subjects. But if you look at the education literature, most of it is Western-centric, right? There's very little to say about how us in Asia differ in our students and our pedagogical practices and our values to communicate, right? So we need more research. We need to understand a little bit more about the technologies that are supportive of this within the Asian context, right? And disseminating best practices is something that's very difficult because of the lack of data, right? So we have all of these students, but we have to put in privacy protection, and then it becomes very hard to publish about this, right? IRB says, you have to secure all of these clearances before you start a study. And so many people execute a study and say, oh, now let me publish. Oh, no, I can't, right? So let's work together to make sure that when we are engaged to create a pedagogical impact, that we start from the best foot. And many researchers say, well, I don't have the time to do that. I'm so busy. I need to implement my classroom, get it fielded out. So let's help you. Okay, that's our job as ALSET. Okay. So what is ALSET? It's an NUS institute. It reports directly to the provost, unlike a lot of other centers. So for example, CDTL is our partner in some ways, but they report to the Vice Provost of Education. Okay, So in some ways, we are a privileged unit because we were started fairly recently, and our provost, as was introduced earlier, was very supportive of doing educational research and thinking about it in the Asian context. Our goal is to be able to support research and innovation in learning for all types of things related to pedagogy, including the science of it and learning science, the educational technology arm as well. Okay, and our mission is really unlike another unit which you've heard about like CDTL, which is to train teachers. Our impact, our prerogative is to help students, right? Help them learn better. We do that in a number of different ways. We help learners learn better by providing courses. We help them learn better by providing teachers with better ways to engage students to measure the outcomes of their interventions. Okay? So we do a couple different types of projects that we'll see over the next couple of slides. It comes in the three basic pillars. We have discovery research. Myself, Min, and Alex, who's standing over there, we both represent the discovery part of the research unit to gain basic insights from research and original data. We also have the translation arm, which takes the outputs from translational research as well as operational questions that deans and faculty have. Like say, is a longer lecture better, or should I split it up into multiple sections? All of these operational questions are questions that we try to answer in the translational unit. Okay. Also have an education unit represented today also by providing courses. So we have two courses right now that we field, one called Learning to Learn. So we teach them metacognition, as well as learning to choose, how to make better choices, life choices, as well as, curricular choices. So there are a couple people involved in these parts. So Bob Kamei, who's sitting in the front, is our director. He's the director and associate provost for education. Myself, I lead the discovery unit. Chris Bosch is in charge of our translation unit. And Fan Man, who is also sitting behind Bob over here with the camera, is our education arm. Yes. Yeah, so we can have multiple presentations this way. Okay, so we want to tell you a little bit about the role of our system. And basically, it's to pair together research and data and courses and programs, right? So we have all of the data that that we're gathering from academic units. We pair them with interventions that we can create and pilot within ALSET, but then field in CIT. And we also work with the Center of Development and Teaching and Learning, CDTL, to get this pushed out to staff and teachers, right? So this comprises of all the research and the data that we're gathering within NUS, and then we pair it with the course programs, right? We can think of primarily our 30,000 undergraduates, but also more and more we're hearing about continuing and professional education and scale. So all of these are things that we are very much concerned about. This is a very big distinction compared to the case of units like Cradle that you may have heard of at NTU, where they're focusing much more on K-12 learning. Okay, so earlier I gave you this star chart, and I'd like to help you understand what we mean by engaging ALSET. Okay, so we have several different levels of faculty that we have in our unit. Right now we have about 50 faculty, and so they are arrayed in 4 pillars. We have a psychology of learning unit, found by Patricia Chen, social networks and learning analytics. So if we're thinking about large-scale analytics, that would be Tuan's unit. Economic impact of education. So after you receive a degree from NUS or you've gone under teaching by a particular professor, how does that look for you economically? Can we measure that outcome longitudinally over time? And Josh, who's here in the audience today, represents the neuroscience of learning. I'll let him talk more about his research in a short while. So with the levels of faculty, I told you we have 4 levels. It's a little bit hard to see in the back, so let me just outline what they are. Besides the research theme leaders, which we just saw on the last page, we have 3 levels. Okay, core faculty, I'll just read it to you, are research faculty whose research interests are directly related to improving and understanding the learner's ability to learn and to retain knowledge. So if you have a research in medicine, in nursing, or something related to those areas, and you feel that you could make an impact by allying with us, then you would become a core faculty member. All right? If you are a research or a educator track faculty that has an interest in these areas, but is not doing research directly on pedagogical influences, then you can apply for the affiliated faculty. These are normally educators that are trying to level up in the classroom. Especially we hear in the university now that educator track faculty can have a promotion to associate professor and to full professor. How do you do that? Well, you do that through the establishment of new pedagogical methods. Okay, the pathway isn't very well paved yet by a lot of cases, but here's one way that you can make an impact. To say that educator faculty can work with ALSET, operationalize what they do, push it out to many, many different faculty members throughout the university, not just in medicine, not just in nursing, but perhaps in computer science and law, or even arts and social sciences. And the purpose there is to disseminate pedagogical excellence. We also have allied faculty members. These are basically people both inside and outside the university that are interested in ALSET's works and want to keep in touch with ALSET. So I'd like you to think about, as we go through this presentation, which area of or which level of faculty that you think you'd like to engage in. And then afterwards, when we finish our presentation, please come and speak with all of us in the room who are ALSET. I think I counted 6 people from ALSET here today. So we definitely can engage you one-on-one. Okay, so right now, the interdisciplinary aspects of ALSET still need to be formed. You can see we have a whole bunch of people in my unit from computer science, but it certainly doesn't have to be this way. We want to tap on all areas of the university's expertise, and that's why we're coming to CenMED today, so that we can beef up the numbers down here in neuroscience and medicine and nursing. All of these areas, we need more experts from our faculty, from our schools, to be able to deal with having a broad range impact over all areas of pedagogy. Okay, so I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of what types of things we're doing. Okay, so Patricia Chen, who's our research theme leader in the psychology of learning, is looking at strategic resource use intervention. And the idea here is to help prompt learners have a better idea of how to manage their time when they are learning, right? So for example, you may think about trying to study for an examination, right? So you want to make a plan for how to study for it. And the idea of planning is not new, everyone does this, but to put it into a realistic form where you're assigning specific resources to specific time frames, that helps a person metacognitively plan out how they're going to use it, right? Many of us, myself included, will just offer, a reminder to students, hey, there's an exam coming up, you better study for it, make sure you eat a proper meal, get a proper sleep, but this goes way beyond this, right? And what she's been able to show is that over several different iterations, right, there's a statistically significant difference when she uses this type of reminding strategy, okay? So the outcome is actually 1/3 of a letter grade difference, which is a really incredible effect, given that this intervention only takes about 15 minutes of time and it can be self-administered by the learners, okay? So those interventions take place right before the exam. The student thinks metacognitively about it and is able to execute on those areas. Okay. So we also have some work looking at, for example, student collaboration. So edges in this graph indicate students that are tied in teams together on certain course projects. And then we can see clusters of different faculty working together. And you can see some connectors. So some units are actually connected by certain students that bridge between certain networks. And the larger the circles here indicate a higher CAP. Okay, so we're doing studies like this to understand how students work together and whether we can find better optimal pairings of students so that everyone can be helped. Okay, Josh will be talking a little bit about his sleep and studying behavior. So I think we'll come back to that in a couple minutes. Okay, so the ways to participate with ALSET are pretty simple. Okay, it's to be able to attend a monthly research meeting that we have that is ongoing. It's next door at University Hall. Okay, and to help define the agenda for what it means to do learning, research, and pedagogy. Okay, and what we'd like to do is again ask you for this particular idea is to look through this deck, participate with faculty in our calls to create an intervention as a core faculty, or maybe you're an affiliated faculty who would like to use in your own classroom an intervention created by a core faculty. So we are trying to pair these two units together so that we can have an impact. Okay? If you have a TEG grant or other type of grant that you've gotten from another unit in NUS, but you seek to make a larger impact by going for a Ministry of Education or NRF type of grant, then we can provide you with seed grants to help you secure intermediate funding so that we can go for an extramural proposal and hopefully a success at that. And we leverage the ALSET curriculum as well in the learning to learn and the learning to educate for adult learners. Okay, so I've shown you this star chart before, so I'll just quickly go over what it is that we have within ALSET. So first, I'd like to talk about the ALSET Educational Data Lake. Okay, so this is the case where, you know, when we have a faculty who says, I want to study learning, okay, I want to study within my class, I would like to get access to the YLLE records, right, because that is the learning management system which all students have to interact. But then maybe you also want to study the impact of your method on their grades. Is that in YLLE? Well, the answer is no. It's with the registrar. It's with a different unit. Okay, so when you want to get all of this data together, if you're a single researcher, that's complex, right? You have to go through multiple levels of approval. You have to go through several different IRB channels. So we're cutting the red tape for you. Okay, what we're doing is consolidating all of that data set in a single data warehouse or data lake. We have registrar data, YLLE data, even job and salary data that comes from IRIS and the Graduate Employment Survey, as well as the student feedback. All of these are things that we have consolidated in one place so that any faculty who wishes to study impact of intervention can do this in a very easy fashion. Okay? Other potential sources, we need your help. So if you tell us, you know, Min, we really need information about who's connected to who. Could we get some idea of who is communicating with each other by looking at email headers? Not by reading their mail, but just saying who is sending to who, so that type of social network data, we could probably deal with this as well, okay? So the idea is to help channel all of your requests to prioritize the list of data that ALSET is putting together to put into this data lake over here. So we're going to migrate all of these things that are potential sources over to the completed side as time goes on, okay? We're also working with the educational data policy. So the idea is to be able to develop guiding principles for how to channel all of that data. With all of that data comes a very big promise of doing very high impact research, but also potential security problems, right? The privacy problems in revealing student data or even faculty data about who is being evaluated. So we need to work with the upper level management as well as faculty to understand the impact that this has. Okay, so if you're interested, please talk to us a little bit more. The request is very, very simple. Basically, you fill out a very quick 2-minute form that's a survey. You can meet with us even in this room to understand the project idea that you might have, and we'll help you complete the IRB. Alex, who's over here, can assist with that. And we can then also provide you with access to a toy version of the data lake. It has all of the fields just with simple values that you can try out with an RA or a staff member. Okay, to get an idea of how to use the data lake. And then after that, you'll be provisioned with the full access. Then your staff members can go inside and create queries on the data to better understand the impact of interventions that you have on students. Okay. We also mentioned funding as one of the 5 pillars of the STAR. And the idea here is, again, that we have funding within NUS to get started on pedagogical value. But we want to roll them out, right? We want to make sure that we have an impact beyond the scope of NUS, right? So it's very important for us to do that at scale. We want our faculty members that are allying with us to apply for extramural grants. And to do that, we are going to supply support in terms of IRB, in terms of helping you understand what the literature needs to be reflective of when you go in for an MOE grant, because most of us are not a full-time involved in the science of learning, right? So we need to know what resources, what citations to write into our research proposals such that we get the right impact and get reviewed by the right officers, okay? And when you win such an extramural grant, actually that helps everyone because ALSET doesn't take any of the indirect costs. You know, your school gets all of the indirects, but we get matching funds from the provost to help support our unit, okay? And some of this 1-to-3 matching gets plowed back to the PI. So when you get an extramural grant, a small percentage of that will go back to uncategorized costs, which you can use to plug funding gaps wherever you need. Maybe it's travel, maybe it's other operating expenses, things of that sort, okay? We also have a statistician on board, Taek Kyung in the jacket in the back over there in the pink shirt. He's our statistician. He can help you suggest a statistical analysis, help you to understand what type of data you need to gather when you create a survey or intervention. Most of us are not experts in this area too. That's why we have also bottled up a staff member to help you with that. So he can deal with research design support, carry out an idea of how many samples you need, the power analysis, and suggest appropriate research designs. Okay. We also do partnerships. So Funman also went to France quite recently. I think this was with the City University, is that right? In Sorbonne. And he met with one of the delegates there, and we signed a partnership between France, CNRS, as well as NUS to look into research in ALSET and other areas. Okay, so just to close out, here are some of the benefits that we have for each of the levels. So here today we're really concentrating on these 2 L levels, whether you're a core faculty member that has an intervention that you would like to share with the world, or whether you're an affiliated faculty member or a staff that would like to take advantage of interventions that have been created by other people and help to vet them, right? So the idea behind an affiliated faculty member is that you work with a core faculty, and together as a team, we can publish high-impact papers in Science, PNAS, other places like that, rather than do piecemeal publications just with small venues. Okay, I'll just say a couple notes about the educational program, and then I'll close out. So we have 2 courses, Learning to Learn and Learning to Choose Better. And so the education strand is looking at these 2 parts. The student guide to help students understand what types of strengths and weaknesses they have in learning. And again, just like the strategic use intervention, develop a personal plan, a learning philosophy to help guide their metacognition, meta-learning stances. Okay, and here's a picture of Bob teaching the Learning to Learn course. I think this was just pretty recently, last semester, in which we're engaging more and more students and also rolling this out at scale, where we're tapping on adult learners as well.